Hello and welcome to this Wealth of Advice special update that we're recording on the 10th of October 2025. The reason why we're recording this update is the budget is a matter of weeks away on the 26th of November, and so far this week we've had more calls from clients quite worried, if you like, as to what might be happening in the upcoming budget. There's been stuff in the news that pension providers are being made to change some of their rules to stop people taking money out of the pension, say, the week before the budget, and then cancel it and put it back in the week after. The first thing to say on that point, that was a totally pointless thing for anyone to do, because if there is any changes in the budget related to pensions specifically, those changes won't be made law that night. It will have to pass through a Finance Act, and I don't believe there's ever been an instance in history where a budget change has been made one day regarding pensions, personal pensions, defined benefit pensions, which has affected tax-free cash or tax relief that very day. Obviously, from the pension provider's point of view, it will be impossible to implement those rule changes kind of overnight. So any client who's thinking about pressing a panic button and taking money out of a pension, obviously that is not the right reason to do it. We need to look what people's objectives are as to why they might be wanting to make a withdrawal, what those uses for the money may be. In some cases, it is obviously prompting people to think about the future, which is often a good thing. What will happen with my money now or in the future? If you want to have a chat with us or whoever your advisor is, me, Matthew, Joe, Amy, give us a call, speak with us, and we can talk it through with you. The budget, as I say, is what, 6 weeks away from us now. There was a really good article in the Telegraph yesterday it was, which got me thinking, well, why not look at this article that's in the Telegraph? I'm not suggesting or endorsing that particular newspaper. I did go online and download this article so we can go through it today. But the article was titled, "What's the 10 tax rates the City of London is expecting in Rachel Reeves's budget?" As I say, this is all pure speculation. Nobody knows yet what Rachel Reeves is going to do. Obviously, as the budget gets closer, they do normally release tidbits to the press, and I think what they're trying to do is to try and garner public opinion as to how such tax changes might come across. The budget in 2024, there was no such leaks of the big stuff, and there was a hell of a lot came through in that budget. And because there was so much came out in the October budget, I think it should be mindful that I personally don't think that they're going to put as many tax changes in place now, which will upset the regular general public, the voters, merely our client bank, those people who are saving for retirement or at retirement. So the article I mentioned, that was in the Telegraph, went through 10 proposed tax increases that the budget might bring about. So we're just going to go through them now and kind of explain how we think these may or may not affect the clients we have who may be watching this today. So number one was the proposed extension of freezing income tax and national insurance thresholds. So when we sit down with a client and review, you might be taking money out of a pension fund withdrawal, you might have a state pension, annuity, etc. All these sources of taxable income. The personal allowance for income tax has been $12,570 for the last few years. If you keep that level and the state pension goes up by inflation, and if you have an ex-employer's pension that's going up by the rate of inflation, or if you just want to take more money from your drawdown pension because you need more money to spend on regular expenses, then the government is going to get more tax, because if you've taken out $12,500 last year and you're paying zero tax, but you need $15,000 next year because everything costs a lot more, well, in that example, you've taken £2,500 above the threshold, you're going to be paying 20% income tax on that, so the government's getting another 500 quid off you. So this is a stealth tax, a lot of people are saying. So you keep those thresholds the same, high inflation, high cost of living, the government is going to get more revenue coming into that. National insurance thresholds as well, they used to go up every year. So if they're keeping all of those kind of in line and not moving them, then more tax is generated. National insurance, it should be said, is only deducted from people who work. So retired people won't have national insurance considerations. So that's one thing to bear in mind when you're reading those stories. Again, something that I don't think is going to affect a massive amount of our clients. Number two is equalising small business rates. So small businesses currently pay a reduced rate of corporation tax. That could be scrapped. And as I say, I think that would be very, very short-sighted, in my opinion, because, again, those smaller businesses that are out there do provide lots of good services. If you think that your local florist who might have a turnover of 100 grand a year or profit of 100 grand a year, that sort of thing, and if they're going to be brought in to pay a high rate of corporation tax, I don't think that's going to be good for long-term growth. So we'll see where they go on that one. A new bank tax, obviously this will get good press for those people who think the big fat bankers who are fat cat bankers who are just generating all this money and they're not going to be making more money. But if you start imposing windfall taxes on certain organisations, which has been proposed by a think tank, that won't affect our clients directly, but again, it might affect investment into the UK. So if you're a big bank and you have a UK arm of that, you might say, well, we'll close that down and move elsewhere. So again, somebody on the other side of the political fence could come up with reasons why this is a good idea. I'm not a huge fan, but that's my thinking. We live in a democracy and all that sort of stuff. But from our client's point of view, it shouldn't really affect you. Number 4, reform of gambling duty. I do know a number of clients who do like the odd bet every now and again. Nothing major, obviously, but that can't affect our clients directly. But again, another one that you could go at that won't affect kind of the end consumer as much. And you might say, well, the horse racing industry, for instance, is quite niche and small in the UK. So raising those sorts of taxes, same as the bank tax, will it affect many people who are going to potentially vote in the future? Maybe not. One which could be quite contentious is council tax reform. I used to live in Trimdon, where my council taxes are the lowest that you could pay on the banding system. 4 years ago we moved. I still only get my bin emptied once a fortnight, and in my opinion, that's the only benefit I get from that. Obviously, a lot of people have that. I know council tax funds a lot of other things, but if they're going to increase the rates and put new bans in place, this is definitely something that could put a financial strain on some of our clients, and it may be a way of getting at a different kind of set of people in the public who pay this and not really affect poor people. They might be thinking, I don't know, but it could be something on the agenda. I know Theresa May wanted to go after council tax reform back, I think, in 2017, and a lot of political commentators at that time said that cost her a lot of political sort of power at that time, and ultimately Boris Johnson took over the Tories after she went, and I think she was trying to get your council tax to pay for social care costs and such like. So nobody's proposing that now, but it's just a way of trying to generate extra money. So I'm not sure if they go after that one, because I think it'll be a political bad move, but we shall see. The next one, number 6, is definitely something I think they are looking at. Again, I mentioned on one of the other taxes where they talk about different government think tanks over the years will produce reports that go to the government where they say, let's change this tax, how might that work? So at the moment, there is no capital gains tax on death. So if you were to buy shares in a particular company, so Rolls-Royce, for example, I'll pick a name. If you bought £10,000 worth of Rolls-Royce shares in 2001, and they were worth £50,000 right now, and you passed away, there would be no capital gains tax paid by the estate on that gain from 10,000 to 50,000. Obviously, the 50,000 will be added to your estate for inheritance tax purposes. So that's why the thinking has always been you don't put capital gains tax on that particular asset. This is something that's been brought up that they may do. Removing this exemption could see large capital gains paid by beneficiaries when the assets are sold. But then if you've also got to pay inheritance tax on the value of that, people might say that that's not really fair. And what it could see people doing is cashing in shares and other assets that are subject to capital gains tax prior to passing away and distributing those assets in a different fashion. I read an article in one of the financial papers a few days ago. Over the last 6 months, more people are cashing in shares and other assets like this to try and distribute money. And I think that could be negative over the long run if there's an absolute rush to get rid of assets that could generate capital gains tax. Obviously, second properties, investment properties generate capital gains tax. We've seen the capital gains tax thresholds reduced from like 11,500 down to I think it's 3,000 now. It's not good that these thresholds have been cut, and then for them to come after more and more taxes, it just doesn't feel right from an investment advisor to try and then go and encourage people to invest in more assets to be taxing them more and more. It just seems counterproductive from my point of view. So number 7, raise income tax by 2% and reduce employees' national insurance by 2% is something that's being proposed as a workaround for the Labour Party promising not to increase taxes for working people. Employees would not see any change in their personal position. However, retirees would be worse off because retirees don't pay national insurance, as I said earlier, and an increase of income tax by 2% is something that would generate a lot more tax for the government. Again, it's been said in the article that this change is deemed unlikely. But again, it's one of those ones where what could we do about it other than to plan, maybe take more money from tax-free ISAs or other investment accounts that you have if you didn't want to pay tax. And again, I would say that, we've had wealth of advice since 2011. One of the main focuses that we have in every annual review with clients is how can we mitigate the amount of tax that you pay in the future. So if something like this was to be implemented, again, it would become law from the April following the next Finance Act going through. So if we found out about it in November, rest assured that we would be looking at this in December into January and making proposals to clients. And if you were taking £30,000 a year out of a pension, and that calculated that you were paying X amount of tax every month, and this was going to go up by 2%, and you said, I don't want to pay that extra tax because I've got £100,000 in an ISA, could I take an extra £100 a month out of that? Then we'd be looking at those workaround solutions. But it should always be remembered that you shouldn't let tax dominate what you do to your detriment. It's got to be a good balance. But again, I'd be very surprised if this one came through. But as I said, this Labour government have been in power now since July of 2024, and they have surprised me on several occasions, so we'll keep an eye on this one. Number 8 is increasing national insurance for the self-employed. Obviously, as a self-employed person, I have been for the last 20 years now, it wouldn't be something that would whet my appetite to vote for this government next time round, but let's never say never again. Keir Starmer clearly said we're not going to affect working people, and although self-employed people do work, I think they do have a different view of what self-employed people do. So again, keep an eye on that. Won't affect our retired clients. Number 9, will they get more businesses to pay VAT? Currently, the threshold for VAT is when your turnover of your business exceeds £90,000. I've often wondered about this one. I think this one could be quite an easy one for them to reduce that threshold down to, I don't know, say 60, 70,000. It would put off a lot more people who could change their business to a limited company. That might have an effect on that. People might stay not limited and try and do something funky with how they declare their income. And that's the other thing. Once they start messing about with all these taxes, people think, well, how can I do this different? Should I do this? Should I do that? But let's wait and see on that one. I think that would be a very negative move, because again, you're putting rules out there which is saying to people who are thinking about setting up business, starting business, or growing a business, if you get past this threshold, there's an extra 20% tax to pay on your sales that you generate. So some people might say, okay, well, fine, revenue, the turnover's gone down from 90,000 to 70,000. I'll just work less, which again is counterproductive for growth in the future. But again, should not affect that many of our clients, if that many at all. Number 10, will they raise income tax rate on dividends? I think this is something that they could look at, because again, dividend income is regarded as a more tax efficient way of being taking money from businesses and other stuff over the years. Dividends are exempt from tax within a pension or ISA wrapper, so they may change that. That again is something that could go overlooked from the majority of people in the general public. But again, from our point of view, if this was to come in, would it affect our clients? Maybe it could affect growth going forward on those products, because if you're going to take a 10% tax from dividends generated within ISAs, GAs, or pensions, whatever it may be, then obviously there's less money being reinvested because it's going out the side door to pay a government tax bill. So it doesn't sound like a positive update that I've given there, because we're looking at different taxes. But all we're trying to get across to our clients watching this today is, I think the dirty work, as I've said a couple of times, was done in last year's budget and things that the Conservative Party had done in the previous 5 years. Obviously, if you had a politician on here right now, they would be saying things like, we need to raise more tax for all the extra borrowing and etc. that went on after COVID. And it's right, that the numbers do need to add up, and Rachel Reeves needs to balance the books. I 100% get that. We were at an investment event 2 weeks ago, and a German fund manager who was sat on the stage said something along the lines of 3 years ago, they were sneering at what was happening in the UK bond market with what Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng did, because it really affected UK government bonds. And since then, every chancellor who's come around has had to balance the books up so that there's not a run on UK government bonds. But right now, one of the things he said, which is very interesting, was he would prefer maybe a German government or a European central bank sort of strategy to try and generate more tax, to try and balance the books. And he said the UK is actually one of the few governments in the world, if not the only government in the world, who's trying to raise extra tax last year to the tune of 40 billion quid. She's going to try and raise another 40 billion pounds this time round. And that may, in 10, 20, 30 years' time, people may look back and say that was a very prudent thing to do, to try and balance the books. Obviously, we just have to hope that the people who are advising, because it's not Rachel Reeves or Keir Starmer who make these decisions, obviously there's a load of people behind behind the scenes who are making these recommendations. Right now, we just have to hope that those people are making good, honest decisions for the better of the country, and then review things as time moves on. And one other thing to say on that is there will be another election, as we have in this country, every 5 years. So what we're 1.5 years almost into this current Labour government, so there's 3.5 years left to go. If they want to get re-elected in 3.5 years' time, they need to make sure that these changes that they make into taxes and other things are absorbed by the people. But then we do get growth coming through and prosperity feels it's there. So this is why, as I say, I think this might be the last bad budget, if you like, of this current regime. And then hopefully the future budgets coming up might make people happier. And then obviously from what the Labour Party people are hoping is that they get re-elected in a couple of years' time. So thanks again for listening to this Wealth of Advice special update on what's maybe happening in the upcoming budget. As I said, it's all just pure speculation, but want to just appease our clients and hopefully make you more confident that we're looking at this all the time. We'll be looking at what goes on the day, making recommendations and proposals thereafter. But if you do want to speak with any of your advisors here, please don't hesitate to give us a call. Thank you.